Let's move on to our final topic, and let's talk about RuPaul's Drag Race's Carmen Carrera, who is coming for. Oh, I gotta close this because I had the T.S. Madison thing open. Who was basically coming for Pose. She said she wanted them to run all her coins because there's a character that was on the show that was based on, there was something that was based on Angel Evangelista when it came to her character on the show. So RuPaul's Drag Race Season 3 star, trans trailblazer, and model Carmen Carrera alleges Janet Mock and other Pose writers ripped off her life story as inspiration for the show's Angel Evangelista character, a trans sex worker turned model portrayed by India Moore on the beloved FX drama. Now, Carmen alleged, shout out to Entertainment Weekly for this story, by the way. Carmen alleged that Mock used her as basis for the character in a social media post on Tuesday in response to a fan tagging her in a post honoring powerful trans women, namely Mock, who served as an executive producer, writer, and director on Pose alongside co-creator Ryan Murphy, saying sometimes with power comes oppression, like how Janet and her writing team completely ripped off my real-life storyline for Angel's character on Pose. I was always curious why Pose had 3 seasons and the biggest trans cast but had no spots for me, Carmen wrote on the social media site, later adding, they made it seem in the media that it was Tracy Norman's story. However, so many elements, twists, and turns didn't match, and the fans noticed it throughout. I mean, listen, if you want to rip my story off, at least pay a girl. Now, when reached for comment, Carmen tells Entertainment Weekly that Pose's casting team approached producer Entertainment Group, that would be PEG for short, Carmen's management at the time, as they were looking for trans talent to hire for the show. Say, included in my media deck is parts of my story, including my wedding photos that were featured in People magazine from December 2015. This was just after the trans tipping point, and so much of the media was covering my story as trailblazing, since no one else had seen a trans person in the position of being married on TV and having stepchildren. This is what Carmen explains, referencing a story that People where Mock worked until 2012 ran about Carmen's marriage. Season 2 gets cast. Jilly Caliente and Peppermint get on the show, and they begin promoting the show as the biggest trans cast on TV. Pose also promotes that in season 2, India's character will be based on the Tracy Norman story. We never heard back about my participation in season 2, but my manager at the time says they would eventually cast me when they could find a part of me since they were casting so many people. She also went on to say that she feels that the casting process wasn't based on acting skills, but that they still didn't get back to her. In fact, she said the series reps were completely ghost regarding a potential role. Fast forward to season 3 coming out, and India's character story taking a twist in storyline for getting married and having a stepchild, much to the confusion of the fans since those elements were never part of Tracy Norman's story. Carmen says, I'm all for telling the community stories and being accurate and true, but it shouldn't be at the expense of the real people who actually live the story. Funny enough, before I get to the rest of the story, what I also noticed in that season, the 3rd season, a lot of the stories felt rushed. Like all of a sudden, Poppy had a kid out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden I guess it did make sense that they were building up to him and Angel getting married. But there were a lot of stories in that show that kind of felt rushed. It's like, well, damn, y'all really speeding through this. And Quiet as It's Kept, or maybe it's not really, but it wasn't just Carmen's story they was taking a lot of reference from. They were taking a lot from Paris is Burning, including, with Elektra's storyline with the dead body in the closet. That was Dorian Corey. When Candy was found unalived in the hotel room, that was Venus Extravaganza. So they were taking a lot of stories from Paris is Burning. One of the things I loved about seeing people of color, queer people of color in this show, but it was like typical Ryan Murphy, lacks originality. Although I do love that the stories was told, and the whole story about AIDS and that whole situation and ACT UP and that whole history behind that. I'm glad all those stories got told, but we could have gotten a little more creative with the storytelling. So they also said that EW has learned through a source close to the situation that Carmen auditioned for a small supporting role as a model on the show. The source says that there was no formal word communicated that Carmen didn't book the role. When reached by EW, Murphy's publicist said the TV mogul has no comment. EW has additionally reached out to reps for producer Entertainment Group, PEG chair. FX, and more for comment. In her social media message, Carmen invoked the legacy of Tracy Norman, a prominent trans model who rose to stardom in the 70s and 80s before being outed against her will. Carmen's pop trajectory also saw her come out as trans after she finished season 3 of Drag Race in 5th place in 2011. In addition to her career as a successful model, Carmen went on to appear on the show's spin-off series Drag You and famously spoke out against reality series Cake Boss for allegedly using her as part of an on-air joke, reportedly unbeknownst to her. Also, they said that what she may have had to do with was getting rid of She-Male on Drag Race, because remember, She-Male was a rip of Tyra Male, but according to some of the girls who found a disdain for it, they felt that She-Male is transphobic. And so the show, after a while, erased it, and now that's why we got She Done Already Done Had Hers. When I would just been like, they should just kept, ooh girl, and then the siren. Y'all should just kept that. That would have been more entertaining than this whole stupid She Already Done Had Hers. What is a famous line that RuPaul has said, but that's where they do their show, so that's what we going with. So Carmen's tweets about Pose also referenced a cast of trans stars who made history among the cast, including Moore, Dominique Jackson, Haley Sahar, Angelica Ross, and Michaela J. Rodriguez, the latter of who became the first trans performer to be nominated for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series at the Emmys. Now, in smaller roles, Pose welcomed other trans community staples, including Carmen's aforementioned fellow Drag Race sisters, Jiggly Caliente and Peppermint, the late Cecilia Gentili, who I just saw was honored the other day on Instagram. I forgot who it was that did it, but I did see it when I was scrolling through the IG. And ballroom icon and legendary judge Naomi Maldonado. Now, other successes of for Pose throughout the years, including a victory at the Emmys for Billy Porter's performance, which, a lot of people dragged with that because he seemed to be like, oh yeah, well, he glad he got his Emmys, but fuck them other people that was on the show. When everybody was saying that the trans characters, who they were the highlight of the show, should have been ones that's getting the Emmy. But of course, y'all run around here giving it to this poser and sissy because the sassy gay man went in for playing a stereotype, allegedly. Now, Pose debuted in FX in 2018 and ran for 3 seasons until ending in 2021. The series followed a group of queer people living in the 80s and 90s in New York City, where they formed a strong chosen family unit while competing in ballroom competitions. And it's funny because I was literally watching an episode of Pose yesterday, and here this story comes up, and now I'm talking about it. So, I definitely feel your pain, Carmen, and understand where you're coming from and all this other stuff. And yeah, it's like if y'all gonna use people likeness, if you're gonna use people's stories or whatever, pay them their coins and pay them their worth. Shout out to the Carreras. One of my friends, Pito Carrera, was a part of the House of Carrera. But yeah, so hearing this story, I was like, this is fascinating. I didn't know who the character of Angel Evangelista was based on, that it was based on another model who, I think I did hear a story about a model who was outed. But then also, I believe that there was also a scene where, when she goes in and tries out for the whole modeling thing, where she auditions and ends up getting, in Paris is Burning, she didn't. That they also took a piece of Octavia Saint Laurent's story and incorporated it in the show as well. So they took little bits and pieces from everywhere and incorporated it in the Angel character. So to wrap this story up, let me know what you guys think of this story, because I was fascinated when I read it. But Carmen is not afraid to call people out on their stuff when y'all be out here doing, shady Hollywood messy things. So let me know what you guys think of the story and about this story down below.